So today we're going to take a look at what's going to happen if the Canadians try to form an empire in the modern day. This video is going to be very unrealistic. All the events that are going to happen are purely fictional. But yeah, let's see what happens if they try to expand in the modern day. Let's see who they declare war on, how they expand, and all those other stuff. But before we get into this video, first of all, I want to mention that major alliances like NATO, CSTO, the EU, or the UN, they do not exist in my videos. If they would exist, they would of course not. If they would exist, they would of course not let these countries expand. Secondly, subscribe to the main channel and to the second channel where I'm uploading Age of History 3 videos. Join the Discord server via the link in the description. But yeah, with all those things said, now let's get right into the video. Canada right here is in a pretty complicated situation. They only border the United States. I mean, technically they do have a border with Greenland, or I could say Denmark. But yeah, other than that, they only border the United States. And let's say if they were to form an empire, they're gonna first have to develop a very good navy. They're gonna have to invest a lot of money in it, because otherwise the Canadians expanding would not make any sense. We're also going to have to assume that the United States would help out the Canadians to expand, even though that's a near to impossible thing, but just for the video. The Canadians start to militarize their country, they recruit more and more troops, and they try to develop a pretty formidable navy. Let's say after 5 or 6 years, we can see that the Canadians are ready for their first military campaign, and this one of course is going to be against the Danish, and this war broke out because of Greenland. The Canadians want their hands on Greenland. This would be a pretty decent way to expand. So yeah, now let's see. Well, the first thing that happens here is the Canadians make a naval landing in the southern parts of Greenland. These are, I guess, the highly populated regions. Greenland barely has any people living in it, and this goes pretty well because no one is defending Greenland. And after a while, all the highly populated regions are now under the Canadian control, after which the remaining parts of Greenland surrender. This time the Canadians had some help from the United States, and yeah, they come to a peace agreement with the Danish. Basically, the Danish had to give up Greenland. The Canadians are looking pretty nice now. They have expanded in a very good manner, even though Greenland is not that valuable, but hey, something is better than nothing. And a few more years go by. The Canadians were still militarizing their country, coming up with reforms, importing weapons from the United States, doing all that stuff. After a few years of militarizing their country and making their navy better, we can see that the Canadians now go ahead and declare war on Iceland, which was obviously going to be their next target, as Iceland also lies in this region. So yeah, now let's see. We can see that the Canadian Navy now has arrived on the coast of Iceland. They make a naval landing right here. They push in. The highly populated regions of Iceland were taken. The remaining parts of Iceland surrender. This was another easy invasion for the Canadians, and they completely annex all of Iceland in a peace negotiation. Now, after invading Iceland and Greenland, the Canadian realized that they're not controlling valuable regions. These areas are of pretty much no value, and maintaining these provinces also costs a lot of money. So now for that, the Canadians are not going to go down here. Instead, they want to focus in the Americas, but they cannot even think of invading the United States because they would be clapped like real bad. So what are they going to be doing? Well, they go ahead and talk to the United States. They want permission from them to expand over here in the Americas. The US does give them permission, and yeah, after gaining the permission from the United States, we can see that the Canadians now want to start their military campaign of the Caribbean, and I don't even want to animate these wars. Pretty much all of these Caribbean islands fell, and now the Canadians have military bases down here, which is pretty nice. They continue their expansion as they go ahead and declare war on the Dominican Republic as well as Haiti, and we can see that the Canadian Navy has arrived. They make a naval landing in the Dominican Republic and they push in. The country surrenders, and the same Canadian troops now push into Haiti, taking the country out in weeks. And yeah, in a peace negotiation, we can see that both of these countries got completely annexed. The Canadian Empire now has a proper province down here from which they can conduct future military campaigns. They send an ultimatum to Jamaica. These guys had to accept the ultimatum, and yeah, things are going great for the Canadians. And while those invasions were happening, the Canadians were also able to expand their military, make their navy even better, of course with the help from the United States. After a few more years, we can see that they go ahead and declare war on Cuba. Bahamas accepted their ultimatum, but yeah, let's see what happens in Cuba. Once again, we can see that the Canadian Navy now has arrived on the coast of Cuba. The island is completely surrounded. They make a naval landing down here, where they now start to push around. Eventually they push up, and unfortunately for the Cubans, they lost their capital city of Havana. The western parts surrender. After all this chaos, we can see that the remaining parts of Cuba also surrender. This was yet another decisive victory for the Canadians. The Canadians have expanded. Their main goal is kind of different, which the United States does not know what it is. But yeah, basically the Canadians want to expand down south, and the only way to do so is by taking out the United States, which is a near to impossible thing for the Canadians. They simply can't do that. But some interesting events happen in the United States. And guys, as I said, this is a very fictional video, so all the events are unreal. But yeah, some interesting events happen in the United States. Basically, we can see that first of all, Alaska was able to gain its independence from the United States, and Alaska becomes its own country. And after becoming its own country, the Alaskans got a lot of threats from Russia, who basically want their old territory back. The Russians said that they would go on and invade the Alaskans. The Russians said that they would invade Alaska. And because these guys fear that, we can see that they decide to join the Canadian Empire. The United States is actually going through some very tough times. They're really not doing well. And I think that this video might just be the most unrealistic one that I've ever made. Some more events happen in the United States. And yeah, let's try to cover that real quick. Okay, so basically, the YouTuber Drew Durno was able to form his own empire over here in Western United States. He started off from California, and he was able to expand his realm. And guess who this one is? This is the YouTuber Adizzpro, and he was able to carve out his own empire here. The United States is now crumbling. Basically, everything is going down for the United States. They're going through a lot. And guess what? This might just be the perfect time to strike. But before that, the Canadians, they kind of ally themselves to the Drew Durno Empire as well as the Adizzpro Empire, so that, you know, they can secure their position right here. And after a few more years of preparations, we can see that the Canadians finally declare war on the United States of America. And at the same time, we can see that the Canadian allies also jump into this war, and this is about to get hideous. We can see that the Canadians now push in from the eastern parts. They start a push down. They secure Maine and some of these other state regions of the United States. Down here, we can see that the Adizzpro Empire now pushes up, cutting off these parts of the United States from mainland United States, which is really not good for these guys. And Drew Durno also pushes up. They push all the way up. They cut off the United States from the Pacific. The Canadians continue their push, eventually meeting up with the Adizzpro Empire. And then the Adizzpro Empire continues their push down in the south too, securing a lot of coastal regions. And things are not looking good for the United States. The Canadians push in from here too, and they push down now. These parts of the United States go ahead and surrender, and the Canadians push down. These parts also surrender, and now a combined army pushes into the United States. But yeah, the US was eventually gonna lose this war, as these guys were more likely to win this war. And eventually we can see that they all come down to a peace agreement. So yeah, now let's see. And yeah, super realistic. The United States got completely annexed by the Canadian Empire. But another thing is going to happen. Unfortunately, Drew Durno as well as Adizzpro pass away. Their children were not able to continue the legacy. So after a while, the Canadians, they eventually take over both these empires, and thus they almost unite the entire North American continent. They went through a lot to do all this stuff. This is going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you guys want to see in the future. And thank you for watching.